The Bros Podcast. The Bros Podcast.
The Bros Podcast.
The Bros Podcast.
Pros Podcast.
The Bros Podcast.
Pros
Podcast.
Spoilers ahead.
Welcome to another edition of the Bros Podcast. Hi, Geoff.
What's up, Eddie?
Nothing much, man. How you been?
I'm good. It's been a while.
I haven't seen you in a while, man. Yeah, I don't have as much time as I used to. That sounds horrible to hang out with you.
Nah, it's life.
I
It's
guess. Right on, man. Oh, we should start doing stuff together. Like,
life. I don't know.
Today we're gonna talk about the new Netflix show Love. Right?
Yeah,
I like that show.
it's good.
I think I binge watched it in like a day and a half. It's pretty easy. That was fun.
And yeah, I think part of how they made the show, how the episodes blend together almost seamlessly at some point. One leaves right after another. It kind of makes it specifically for that
I
binge
like
watching.
that. Yeah, it really was very binge watchable.
Yeah.
I binged on it like I do heroin or cocaine.
So what is Love on
Full
Netflix
disclosure,
about?
No heroin and no cocaine. Just weed. All right, so Love is about this guy, all right? He's got curly hair and a huge nose, and he wants to fall in love. So he ends up moving in with his girlfriend. She becomes sick and tired of him because he's kind of a control freak in certain ways. And they break up, and then there's this other girl who's with this guy who's a total loser, but turns out she's kind of a loser too. And she has a hard time admitting that. And at the end of the first episode, those two bastards meet in a beautiful way. And then they give Love a shot. Kind of, not really. It's a really slow burn.
It's funny that it's called Love, and you would imagine it would be a different type of show, but it's more like a modern take on love.
It's the most honest take on love I've seen in a bit. Or at least it's a very honest take on love compared to any rom-coms or other garbage TV I've seen in a while. You know, like, there's a really unrealistic expectation that's been created by TV shows in the past. And I think that this show is kind of tackling that subject, being like, this is what people want out of love. They want it to give them all of these feelings. And when they don't get those feelings, they feel like running away from it, I guess.
It depends, because I think we'll get to what both characters end up doing through the course of the podcast. But at some points they run away from it, at some points they go like headfirst into it.
Like
yeah,
Velcro wallet.
So I was thinking that love essentially is, I wrote down that it's kind of like the unexpected journey a romantic relationship will take you. TV kind of has a better ability to tell this type of story than like an hour and a half movie. Something like Trainwreck that I really like, you don't get that emotional growth in an hour and a half. It's just way too difficult.
You just touched on something I have a question for, and why not now? Because it's kind of what you're talking about. Judd Apatow, Freaks and Geeks, Love, Trainwreck, 40-Year-Old Virgin, This is 40.
Knocked Up.
All these movies,
Everything.
all these shows. Should he stick to TV, or is he better at movies?
I wonder how much of this was him.
Because it's presented by, right?
I know he's a producer, and I think he either
I always overlooked that because like Tim Burton almost did nothing for Nightmare on Elm Street. Not Nightmare on Elm Street. He did absolutely nothing for Nightmare on Elm Street. But
yes.
The Nightmare Before Christmas, like he actually didn't direct that movie. He had like it was a producer, and it was Tim Burton Presents A Nightmare Before Christmas. But it was kind of like they were using his name to make more money off of it. But he really didn't have all that much to do with it.
From my understanding, it's Paul Rust and his wife. They're the actual creators of the show. Paul Rust is the guy who plays Gus.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Uh-huh.
So he's the actual creator of the show?
Yeah, it's
Oh, man. That
in conjunction with Judd Apatow, and I believe he directed or wrote an episode, but I think it's mainly Gus or Paul Rust's vision.
That's awesome.
Him and his
man.
wife.
I really love the fact that he goes so hard on himself. Because by the end of the show, I don't know about you, but I fucking hated him.
Yeah,
He
kind of
was
sucks.
So he was like a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode that just wouldn't end. You know, like at the end of it, you know, Larry David resets and you start a new episode. In this one, it was like an episode led into another episode, like, and just everything kept on being worse and worse. I guess it was a lot like Curb Your Enthusiasm. I get that feeling. You know that feeling you get when you watch Curb Your Enthusiasm that you're like,
this
fuck,
uncomfortable,
cringy horribleness that I love, that only great shows can take me to. What do you think about? I've heard, not heard, but I was watching some. I'm a YouTube addict. I actually put it on to go to sleep.
That and heroin and cocaine.
Mostly YouTube, but still a lot of heroin and a lot of cocaine. I was listening to some reviews about this show because every time I watch something, I want to hear what everybody thinks about it. And
can I ask you a question? Mm-hmm. Do you do that after or before you watch the show?
After.
Okay,
100%
yeah,
after.
me too.
And what really sucks is that I am addicted to YouTube. So like when a new movie comes out that I want to see, and it's really, really popular, I stay off YouTube and I get really, really bummed out that I have to stay off YouTube. Anyway.
Let's go to PewDiePie, man.
Yeah, there you go. PewDiePie is amazing. No, that's not the YouTube I watch. So they said there was a little draggy towards the middle is the biggest complaint I've pretty much heard about this show. I like the show a lot, but...
I heard that about the show too, and I think what people mean by draggy, at least this is my interpretation of it, the story essentially is a quote-unquote love story between Gus and Mickey. Well, that doesn't really... The first two episodes are clearly them, and then they kind of separate. You see Mickey at her job, you see Gus at his job, and then Gus ends up going on a date with Birdie. After that, there's this weird kind of episode with Andy Dick, and then they kind of pick up their relationship again. So the whole season, I think, could have done without some of those episodes or combined them, because we're watching a show about them together. Why do we need all these little like side adventures? Like, why the fuck does Andy Dick need to even be there? That's the episode I like the least.
I disagree with you completely. I love Andy Dick's episode, man.
Really?
Anytime Andy Dick gets a job, I'm very happy. It's just like one less thing we have to worry about. There's not a random Andy Dick just hanging out at Starbucks anymore.
Even though he's like, I think he's like a sexual abuser of women or men or God knows what.
I don't know, man. I think honestly he's a media whore more than anything.
No, he's done that.
He beat people and did all that stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I'll have to check specifically what.
That leads right into our new podcast. All your heroes are assholes. We're on that. We're on that, guys. I like that episode, but either way, I totally see what you're saying on the fact that it was kind of out of left field to have that episode there, but it kind of allowed for Gus to freak out about her not texting him back, and then him to end up with Heidi. You know, right? I mean, if it wasn't Andy Dick, it would have been another character.
So you liked that kind of breathing room that they had there?
Well, they needed that breathing room for the plot, right?
Well, I thought I could see it as that, which allowed him. I think several factors allowed him to hook up with Heidi. And since we're on the subject, I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit. Heidi, his co-star, seems kind of like the anti-Mickey right at the right time. It comes right after that date, the magic show date, which I want to get into. Right after that goes horribly. Mickey, who doesn't really want to be involved in his world, she doesn't really like magic, which is a big interest of his, doesn't really like his whole theme song parties. She's kind of like in the morning like, sounds stupid, doesn't want to go. Well, this girl seems super into it. Whether or not it's a genuine emotion or not, who knows? I don't think it is.
The difference there is that Mickey isn't super into his hobbies. She's super into him. And the other girl is super into his hobbies and what he does and what he can do for her, but she's not really into him.
Yeah. Great way of putting it.
Can I ask you a question real quick, completely off topic to what you want to move into and what we've been talking about?
Sure.
Two-sister three-way, would you?
Fuck.
That's gross to me, man. Like, as soon as she said that, I was like, oh, Yeah, no. You know what? Fuck that, because sisters talk about everything. In my experience,
How drunk am I?
right now? Oh, I'm like, I don't know, 2 beers in? As drunk as he was, so let's say 8 beers or something like that.
I don't
Because he had a lot to drink that night.
I think Gus's biggest problem, one of his problems, is he's definitely a nervous talker and likes to get into things. I think if I was in that moment, like, I wouldn't have asked or like started, like, I would have been, oh shit, this is happening.
Yeah.
So I don't think that would have come up. I would have been, oh shit, I don't want to say anything just in case they change their minds.
Another thing was that if they weren't into each other, I would think of it as a pointless activity. Mind you, I have a girlfriend now, and I would never cheat on her, not even with 2 sisters. But like, if the whole thing was like, oh, you're gonna have sex with 2 different people, I'd feel inadequate, and I'd feel like there was a lot of one person just waiting around, and I would feel like I was failing them, and it would make me overthink, and I would go limp as a whatever. I think.
Would you be like, hey, do you want me to turn on the TV or?
Yeah,
the,
I mean, like, you want a
PlayStation for
magazine
you?
or something while we have sex? Because you're not a part of this right now, and you're not touching anything else. So,
So is it like
weird.
me and her, and then me and you, or?
yeah.
See, but
It's
then
one
you
of-
can't talk that much. You just got to
Yeah,
figure out.
you guys gotta figure it out, man. And I can't. I wouldn't be able to. It's too much to think about. I overthink things. Probably not as much as Gus, but yeah, that was kind of horrible.
While
and
that
crazy.
was funny, I think there probably would have been a better way for us to visualize how uptight he is, because that's not like I thought that was the point at first, but I was like, saying no to a threesome with 2 sisters, that's not really being uptight. That's kind of strange in general. A strange
It's more
situation.
like, I don't know, man. It's more like he thought about the situation. It was super hot to him, and when it didn't live up to his expectations in his head, he called it out.
Just like the magic show date.
When I was in LA, we drove by the magic place.
Oh, so that's
and-
a real thing.
Oh, that's a real place. And you have to be a member to go there, and you can't just pull up and go in. When he's like, welcome home, where's your pin? You have to have the jacket on. Those are all probably real rules.
So is it like the gothic asshole from Arrested Development?
The gothic. That's the guy that
The
fucks
gothic
with-
castle?
The
Or the gothic asshole?
The gothic asshole.
The gothic castle.
Well, it's called the Magic Castle, right? The Gothic Castle is the one that Job goes to. I think they're making fun of it on Arrested Development, and this is the actual one in this one. But I really wanted to go there.
But you didn't have your
I wasn't a
suit or-
member,
yeah.
and I didn't really look up or anything. If you can probably get day passes or something stupid like that.
You
I'm
should.
sure.
Is Magic that fucking popular that you would need to?
Well, that's the whole thing, right? The gimmick is you can't come, and that's why you want to come. Yeah,
Gross.
I know. It fucking sucks. The other day I was at the bar. I work at a bar, as I always say. This guy came up and started doing sleight of hand, and like ended up with Matthew's ring on his hand, and ended up like with one of our tip jars under a I don't know, towel I lent him. It was ridiculous. It was super fun though. He really brightened up my night.
It's good that your night was better because of that dude. But I would have liked the story a lot more if all of you guys took him outside and beat the shit out of him for stealing.
That's happened too. That was a different job in a different place.
There's one of those Waller endings for you.
That wasn't that wasn't a Magic Castle. What do you think about the episode? I rather enjoyed it. I like the whole idea of having huge. The reason why I think I like this show so much is because it hit close to home a lot of the time.
I want to stick with this episode. However, what's great about the show, at least for me, is like there's certain times where like I completely relate with Mickey, or the times I completely relate with Gus. Mm-hmm. And this episode, I was definitely torn half and half.
Yeah.
Between them.
If you're putting yourself into Gus's position, you say, I want her to like the same things I like, but at the same time, you can't push that on somebody and force them to like what you like, because that is asking them to be like you. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, she kind of called it out in the car ride, where it's like, well, you took me to this having a certain expectation. But she didn't have to be such a bitch about it. She started out kind of cool, and then she just got worse and worse. But that's kind of her. That's her nature, and that's something I really like about Mickey being so combative and feisty.
I think that's the thing about him is that if he's gonna fall in love with her, he has to fall in love with that side of her because that's who she is. You're right. Like she wasn't trying to be a bitch. That's why I wasn't like mad at her. You know, she wasn't trying to be a bitch at all. She was just coming off as, you know, rude, but only to the fact that that's the expectations of this place, you know? And I mean, in other eyes, it's like more like he was being rude by taking her to this place and expecting her to like it, regardless of whether or not she actually did or not.
And what's so awesome, it kind of calls back to that first/second episode where you see Mickey like that again in the convenience store. And she has this like big issue with the convenience store clerk. And when she's done, she comes back and she's like, you know what? Fuck you.
Yeah.
And she has to like get that in.
Yeah.
And she has to like even make Gus buy cigarettes as almost a fuck you to that clerk.
Yeah. I mean, she's definitely flawed as a person. But at the same time, yeah, like, I still really, really like the feistiness, man. Part of me was all about them hooking up because I was like, opposites attract. They'll be perfect together this way. You know, but at the same time, I don't know if that holds up throughout the show. What do you think? At the end, do you think they should have ended up together? Or do you think that was like just, you know, Gus is at a very low point. She's at a very low point. But she doesn't, she kind of comes in and goes like, can we try this again in 1 year? And then he like kisses her because he's at a very low point.
Well, I want to maybe hold that off to the end because I have several questions about that.
All right.
That I want to talk to you about. Kind of sticking with this episode, the magic episode, did you feel that one of them was more right or more wrong than the other? Or did you feel like it was just like maybe they were so opposite that of course they weren't going to get along?
I think on different parts of the show, I felt different things. Like at the beginning of the show, I'm like, oh shit, run away, Gus. Mickey's insane. Like this girl is going to be trouble.
Definitely in the convenience store.
In the convenience store, for example. After the convenience store where he's throwing his Blu-rays out of his window because she got him high. You know, like there's things where I'm like, oh my God, Gus. But towards the end of the show, I was like, Gus, Mickey's the best you'll ever do. You'll never do better than her. She's always going to be there for you and she'd love you. And he needs somebody like that. That's what he's looking for. That's what he's looking for at the beginning of the show. That's what he's looking for with Heidi. But he's kind of missing the fact that she'd be very loyal.
You see that in that second episode too, which I loved. So at first you just see Mickey kind of taking advantage of Gus. Makes him pay for the coffee, makes him pay for the cigarettes, and then she makes him move Birdie's dresser in, which I love the character of Birdie.
That was actually my favorite.
She makes him do that, makes him get his wallet. But after that, once they get high and he accidentally sends them to his ex-girlfriend's house, she really does help him out emotionally, I feel. Mm-hmm. Like that was like...
You know, at that point when she's just treating him like a friend, she was better at the relationship than she was at any other point in the show. Once they started kissing, she goes insane. But before that, I think there was a very real friendship that was blooming there, and she was treating him the way that I think he wanted to be treated afterward as well.
So do you think they would be better as friends?
Maybe, but it's too late for that, man.
I just love that one scene. I think it's telling that, and I don't know if this is kind of sexist or not, Gus to me initially, well, at least several parts in the show, is the one who's there like financially and he's paying for stuff and he's emotionally weak.
Yeah.
Mickey is the one that's helping him with that stuff. And she's strong in that aspect. So when we start to say opposites attract, I think that's part of it.
That's the biggest opposite that they have.
Yeah, the yin and yang.
Deep-seated, insecurity and a deep-seated, incredible confidence that she has, even though it's a very, like you said, to put it nicely, feisty. I think that the show did a really good job in not creating the crazy girlfriend role.
I'll get into right now several other issues critics have with the show, but one of them isn't the fact that, you know how normally this type of show they would make
It would be
static
called
character, a
Your
crazy
Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
She is
I think there's a show called that, actually.
There is. She's a
Jesus
very
Christ.
real person.
Yeah, exactly.
And most of the time, since these shows are written by dudes, the guy is the
Not
real
only
one
dudes,
with emotion.
white dudes from Harvard. Fucking bullshit.
Well, that's fine for me. If I want to start writing stuff, I can.
Yeah, you're Jeff Waller. Fuck you. I can just change my name. Albert Brooks. I'm going with Al Brooks.
You know, if white people ever fall out of fashion, which, you know, I guess if Trump's going to be president, that ain't going to happen. I can just go with I'm Mexican or Lebanese.
There you go,
Works
man.
out well for me.
You can fucking clean my yard or make me some pita bread. All right. Well, just as everybody knows, my name is Eduardo Ivan Cruz Espinosa, so I'll clean your yard if you want me to. I had another question for you. Mickey's girl. Or let's go back to Birdie. You want to go back to Birdie?
Yeah.
I really liked Birdie. The character of Birdie is one of my favorite characters on the show because she has like incredible confidence. The marketing thing is really funny. Like, okay, so drink this vodka. Now drink this one. Now drink this one. Now tell me what you think. It was ridiculous, but fun, you know? And it kept her kind of grounded. And she was kind of like a caricature, but at the same time, they create a character there. She was probably the funniest part, in my opinion, of the show at certain points. The date that she has with Gus, where they're trying to outmaneuver each other in how horrible they can be, was, in my opinion, the funniest episode.
Yeah, I would say it's one of the ones that made me laugh out loud.
And also at the end of that episode, it is, I guess, the climax with them kissing, with Gus and Mickey kissing.
Yeah, it's where Mickey kind of realizes that she's like, maybe I should give this guy a
chance.
try.
Yeah. And you know what's really funny about that is that later she's like, oh, he's so perfect, or he's so hot, or I'm not sure what she calls him, but she calls him attractive. And it's just kind of weird to go back to those early episodes and see how she was treating him. It's like complete friend zone, not even a glimmer of thinking of him as a sexual being.
I think that happens, though, and I think that's a very real thing that happens with people.
I agree.
Where, I mean,
you can
look at them, and it's like, whatever, and you hang out with them, and you start to find them attractive.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And it felt very organic as opposed to, like...
The inorganic thing is, like, when he takes her to the first date, and, like, I've had really bad first dates like that where I expected somebody, well, not expected somebody to like what I liked, but I've taken somebody on a date that was, in retrospect, fucking horrible, which is I took somebody to go see Bill Cosby on a first date. And at the time, he had already raped 30 women. But,
and you knew that going in,
but
right?
no. But we didn't know about going in.
Let's go see the rapist
Bill Cosby.
Cosby.
I didn't know that he had raped so many women. I would have been cool with 3 or 4. No, just joking. Of course not.
I remember how excited you were to
I was really
see
excited,
Bill Cosby.
man.
Everybody
Dude,
was.
I'm Fat Albert, dude. Bill Cosby, The Cosby Show. So this was really, it was like cool to see, Dr. Huxtable up on stage. And then we found out that he's a rapist. And in retrospect, fucking worst date ever. I have really good seats too. Fucking hell.
It's funny, I'm kind of saying like, oh, you went to see Bill Cosby. I wanted to go see Mike Tyson, another known rapist.
Yeah.
But are there rape levels? Did he? I don't know how many people Mike Tyson raped.
Man, I don't want to talk about this anymore. I'm going to bring it back to the show. All right, so the whole thing is to throw a grand gesture for the first date with somebody that maybe was a friend and then you wanted to turn into something else. A grand gesture is what the guy maybe expects if he's an idiot, like myself or Gus. And it turns out that, Netflix and a pizza is probably your best bet on creating a lasting relationship, because it's like, if you can love or want to be with somebody when they're just sitting next to you, that's where it's at. It's not that you guys, you're not going to go out to fucking see Bill Cosby every weekend or go to this magic castle, where you need whatever. At the end of the day, I think that his expectations failed him a lot. I mean, you've been in a fucking relationship for like 9 years now, right?
Yeah.
Is it 9?
I don't know. I don't think about it.
Okay, cool.
And I think part of that is why we've been together for so long.
Because you're oblivious to time?
Yeah.
There you go.
When somebody asked me, how long have you been together with your girlfriend? I was like, what is it, a countdown? Does it end after a certain time? What the fuck?
3, 2,
I sound like
no.
I sound like an old Jewish writer. What is it, a countdown?
What am I, a banker? Anyway, what do you think about that whole expectation thing? Like, not expectation thing, but you and your girlfriend have different interests, right?
Yeah, you need them.
All right.
You
She's
need
a
'em 'cause-
painter.
Yeah, and I enjoy that too, but I'm not as into it as she is. It's something more like
And
I
she's-
see a painting and I can say I like this and I like this, but I don't know painters, I don't know styles.
And she's
she
not
does.
super into playing a 9-hour board game with you and your 3 drunk friends.
No.
Oh, wow. My girlfriend either.
Yeah,
Turns out.
especially when we start yelling at each other.
Oh, yeah, they really hate that. Yeah,
Nobody likes that.
Nobody likes that.
I don't like that.
I hate it. Yeah. That's pretty much all I have to say, except for I wrote down Gus has become the asshat of the show. And I just wanted to say that out loud.
Let's talk about Gus for a little bit.
All right.
I have a question for you. Is Gus a nice guy?
No.
How
And
so?
yes. He fulfills all the expectations of what a nice guy are in society.
He understands what being a nice guy is.
And tries to emulate that, but in doing so, he's a guy that probably hasn't had as much attention as he's getting now, and in getting this attention is revealing who he really is. And by the last show, you can tell who he really is, which is very selfish, but on top of that, also very, and by selfish, you should also include self-important. He thinks that because he came up with this one idea for the show, that he should get full credit for the episode. He doesn't know how to work with others. He doesn't know or see what goes into creating a shitty TV show. It's still incredibly hard work. The fact that a movie ever gets created is a fucking miracle. That's 100% every single movie, You should just be surprised if there's a plot. Because what goes into it is so chaotic, in my opinion, that you can't control it just one person.
And even if there is a plot, there's no guarantee that your movie won't be cut down so much by
That you
outside
lose that,
forces
yeah.
or producers that it no longer makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, man. And there's so much that goes into it. That's why I really hate it when it's all like the new Tim Burton movie. I'm just going really hard on Tim Burton today, but he was good back 95. 88 to 95 was a really good streak for him.
When Tupac was still alive, Tim
Yeah.
Burton was the jam. So Gus isn't exactly a nice guy, but I think that's what's super interesting about the show, because it is kind of cliche, like the nice guy, the crazy girl, and they both change. That's the idea, right?
Yeah.
A nice guy, crazy girl, they find each other, and then all of a sudden everything's better. But no, Gus and Mickey are more dynamic characters than just the stereotypes or the typical cliches. One thing I heard criticism about this show, which I thought was kind of funny, it's that trope of the, quote, ugly guy, or the quote, hot girl falling for the ugly guy. And if you narrow that show to just that, you completely didn't even pay attention to what's happening.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that, especially since, number one, he really had to fight to get with her. And number two, she is really pretty, but she has way too many flaws to be kind of in a relationship herself. And that exists a lot.
And her flaws aren't fixed by the end.
No.
In
maybe
a
not
typical
flaws,
story,
but she's just
well, they're flaws.
yeah, you can't take her home to mom without worrying about how it's going to go,
Yeah, both of them have flaws.
Yeah.
You can call them that. But it's just funny because if this were, any other story, by the end, all her flaws would be fixed. Then she would go back to him. She's like, I'll change, all this and that, which she kind of does, but not really.
Well, she goes up to him and says, hey, my shit's all over the place. I want to get it back together, and then I want to try this again. Maybe in a year we can try again, which I really respected, And that's kind of something that don't think I've ever tried. Whenever I break up with somebody, I kind of like to burn down the house.
So we're talking about like bringing up the end. How did you feel about the end? Is the end romantic, or does it come from a place of emotional weakness from either Gus or Mickey?
It would definitely be coming from Gus if there was some kind of... Because he's going through a lot of disappointment that day. And Mickey comes up to him with like not really like I want to be with you. It's more like hey, I'm fucked up. I still like you. I want to try this again when I'm better. And he goes in for a kiss.
I think that's fucked up on Gus's part. Yeah, because he's feeling emotionally vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And this is what's interesting, because I think if it was a standard Hollywood movie, Hollywood show, those roles would be reversed.
Reversed, yeah.
Mickey comes across as finally the strong one in the end, I feel.
She's really finally taking a step.
Yeah, she comes to
right
a conclusion of what she wants, and Gus is making it more emotionally confusing, which makes sense from the very beginning because he's always been the more emotionally vulnerable one.
Yeah, and he's been trying to build this house that doesn't exist. Like the fact is that him moving into that like wayward home for people that are in the industry and just coming in and out of town, I think made his life better because of the fact that he was like forcing his... Gus is the kind of guy that would go on OkCupid, go on one date, and then try to get married with that person, in my opinion. Like everybody, right? No, but he also like seeks out... So it gets to the point where he's seeking out like advice from random people. For example, Kevin, the guy that does the food, constantly gives him like dating advice and all that stuff, and it's completely wrong. But the whole thing is that Gus is looking for friends because does he have any friends on the show?
Yeah, no, he has tons of friends.
Well, yeah, but like real friends though.
It's
like
tough.
That's the thing, is that like he has not fair weather friends, but like acquaintances. So a ton of acquaintances, but did he really have like I'm your friend? If I having a bad day, I'll call you and be like, hey, having a bad day.
He definitely has the couple who are friends. That one girl who was also in This Is 40.
Yeah.
And
Paper Heart. Paper Tiger? Paper Heart.
Not
sure,
sure,
a good
but
movie.
Her and her love interest in the show, they are clearly friends, and you see them talk about several things within the series. So they're friends. The other people who show up for his kind of like theme parties, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I might be wrong about that.
So did you have any issue?
They did seem like they were really good friends with him.
Did you have any issue with that? The whole hot girl, ugly guy
I didn't really
trope?
find her super attractive. She was pouty all the time. I didn't really go
That's
like...
how Jillian Jacob looks. Like even in...
Then I don't find Jillian Jacob super attractive, man.
Did you ever watch Community?
Yeah, it was good. It was really good.
She was good in that too. The casting for her, I think, was...
It was good. It was good, guys. I think the whole hot girl, hot guy, ugly guy, I mean, he has a huge nose. But that doesn't mean he's ugly. That's the whole thing. It's all about perspective, right? Some women fucking are turned on by huge noses. Some girls like toes. Some girls like fat guys. Some girls like skinny guys. Gay guys like polar bears. Bears. Twinks.
Grizzlies.
These are all like...
It's a grizzly.
No, it's a bear. Bear is just a hairy guy that's fat. There was another one. Polar bear?
Cub.
Panda bear is Asian. Polar bear. It's a polar bear because it's an older bear.
Oh, all white. That makes more sense. That makes
way more sense. And then twinks are really, really cute, young, skinny boys.
A twink's not a bear, though.
No, it's a different thing.
It's a different thing.
What I'm getting at is that There's
Beauty's
no
in the eye of the
ugly
beholder.
Eye of the beholder bullshit.
There was a major issue with that. People were, maybe it's just something to talk about online, blog about.
It's just
but
the internet is fucking retarded.
people are shitting all over
People
Judd
shit all
Apatow
over
for
everything,
that.
man.
Yeah, that's
People
true.
shit on all over everything.
So this guy, I can't even, I wouldn't even say is like a character, but one of the scenes or the people or interactions I loved the most was Mickey when she's looking for her cat Grandpa, which I think is a fucking hilarious name.
That was the best name I could have ever thought about that. Because he's a reincarnation of my grandpa. And then he's there licking himself while she's vibrating the
Dude,
vibrator.
that scene is
was
awesome.
awesome. Oh, I love that.
So when she loses him and she's handing out all the flyers and she puts one on this guy's car and he just like lays into her about what an awful cat owner she is, and when he looks at the picture he's all, great, looks like every other fucking cat I've seen. This, like that interaction and that actor, I was like, holy shit, who is this guy? This is fucking awesome.
I really like that a lot, man. That was really funny. I completely forgot about that scene. That was great. What about all the other supporting casts? Kevin. Oh, I mentioned Kevin earlier. I didn't mention that his name's Jordan Rock and he's Chris Rock's little brother, which I think is fucking crazy because I was writing notes for this podcast, and one of the notes was, this guy's totally ripping off Chris Rock in his delivery, like his voice. I could tell right away that it was Chris Rock, like kind of like esque. And I was like, oh, it's because they're related.
So you're talking about kind of extras and random other characters throughout the show. How'd you feel about Gus's ex?
The ex,
The AT&T girl.
She did a good job.
Yeah.
It was fine. I liked. Oh, I liked all the extras on this show. Like the two girls that were sisters that tried to sleep with him. Their reaction was really good. Heidi made me hate her. Oh, and the sex scene was really hilarious.
Yeah. Well, she's like, I mean, as far as characters, she's like one of the
bad
main,
guys.
not main characters, but
she was in 4 or 5 episodes.
So I put something that Gus's, I'm paraphrasing, but his ex says, because they talk about Gus and his niceness, and I thought this was interesting and kind of untrue. She starts talking about niceness. It's not being nice when one person wants out of the relationship and you don't let them.
Yeah, that's not nice at all.
It's not, but was he being like that? That's such an interesting and weird statement to me, because it seems like she was putting that all on him. She could have left, but she wanted him to be the bad guy.
Yeah, and eventually she's like, oh, I give up. I cheated on you, and she really didn't, just because she needed to be the bad guy so he'd leave her. I guess it's the whole thing is saying to Gus is one of Gus's flaws is not being able to take hints, maybe, or not even take hints, but like understand you're in a flawed relationship. You can't work through everything, you know?
Well, they both said they've kind of gone from a relationship to relationship.
So they're serial monogamists. Yeah, that's actually putting a lot on Gus. That's kind of bullshitty.
Overall, did you enjoy Love on Netflix?
I liked it a lot. I'd give it 7 dildos out of... No, sorry.
You're still going with that?
No, I was just starting with it just to see what you'd say.
Are you excited to see where they go from here?
I'm super excited to... And I'd give it more than 7 dildos out of 10. I'm super excited to see where they go from here. I want to see if the writing keeps up. The only way I'll hate it is if they remake the first season again. I don't want this to turn into a How I Met Your Mother thing. Like where it's just like 8 seasons of him trying to hook up with this girl and then hooking up and then breaking up and then hooking up and breaking up. I don't think they're going to go that way. And that's why I'm excited. But if they do go that way, I'll be very disappointed.
Hopefully they would end it before then. I'm not sure how many more seasons they would have of this unless they can really, fuck man, I guess think outside the box, and they have so far. Or not really outside the box, they've just been more real than anything else.
Yeah, I agree. And it's really nice, like you said before we even started this, it's one of the few shows that takes place in the real world. Like I said, that Magic Castle place exists. It's pretty awesome to have a show that doesn't try to create its own little bubble for itself.
Do you think they'll ever go to the Gothic Castle?
The Gothic Castle, and Job's just doing like setting other people on fire and shit. I hope so. That'd be great if they had a little No, they wouldn't. Not with the show. That'd be great if 30 Rock and Arrested Development had intertwined. That would have been fun. That would have been like the Jetsons meet the Flintstones, but that never happened.
You and your combining universes, man.
Whatever, man. Everything needs to be combined.
So what universe needs to be combined with love?
Curb Your Enthusiasm. The ultimate cringe-worthy show.
That could. Both based in LA.
And they can just do when he's on Love, it could feel like Love, and when she's on Curb Your Enthusiasm or he's on Curb Your, it can feel like Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Right on.
That'd be awesome.
So we have both the Pros Bros here for our podcast outro this time around.
I'm here too. I'm Eddie.
He is Eddie.
And I was on the podcast.
Yeah, important person.
Thanks, man. That's the only place I'm important.
VIP.
Hey, Geoff, where can people find our podcast?
Oh, great question. So on Podcast Addict, you can also find us on iTunes. And if you want to follow us on Twitter, just search the Pros Bros.
It's on Stitcher too, but fuck Stitcher.
Yeah, nobody uses that shit no more.
No, it's stupid. Yeah, that's neither here nor there. But the character of... Actually, edit all of that out. I really love the character.
Stop laughing.
Thanks for listening if you did.